What's up, guys? How you doing? If y'all remember the review we did on the Vevor welding table, as much as I like that thing, there are a couple things we can do to this to make it 10 times more useful. And that is adding a bench vise and a bench grinder. I've got a real lightweight vise and a real lightweight grinder that I think I'm gonna go ahead and add to this thing. The problem is, if I permanently mount them both, well, then I lose the option of using them over on the bigger workbench, and I can't move it around. So let's see if we can come up, at least for the bench grinder, to put that on a mount that'll both sit flat and stable on a bench or something like that if we need to keep it mobile, but also the way it mounts is through a bench vise. Let's go check it out, see what we can come up with. I got some good ideas, and any day I get to play with a welder and a plasma cutter, you know it's gonna be a good day. So come on, guys, let's go. I wasn't planning on including this, but I used this tool and I got to thinking about it, and I need to tell y'all about it. This is a rivet nut tool, and it's what I used in the video to attach everything that was bolted. But what it does is it uses these little rivet nuts. You drill a hole that it fits in, you thread it on here, and I'll have a link to these if you want to buy one. I don't make any money off the link, but I'll include it if you want one. You thread these on here, and then you squeeze both handles, stick this down in your sheet metal, and see how it expands right there? See how that expanded? Well, that clamps onto the sheet metal and gives you a place to run your nut down. I'm sure most of you are aware of these, but unscrew that and it comes off. But anyway, like I said, they sent it to me. I didn't think much of it until I used it. It came with, you know, all the common different size mandrels, a whole bunch of rivet nuts. I'm gonna have to buy some more of these because I can think of a bunch of places where I'm gonna put this thing to work. Works pretty easy. Your mandrels come packaged in these little cartridges. Makes it pretty easy to use, but it just slides in there. I'll show you right quick. Pick the size you want, load it in, run that collar down, and then this piece goes on and threads on there. And you just, you know, insert your rivet nut. Keeps you from having to, you know, have to keep up with a nut if it's something you're going to take loose a time or two, or especially like if you can't get to the back side of a piece of sheet metal or something. But anyway, I thought I'd share that with you guys. Link below. I'm not going to make any money off of it, but if you want to purchase one, go ahead. So as you can see here, I'm just using some old bed frame material, cutting off the extra pieces with the plasma cutter. It's held together with a bunch of rivets and stuff. Took a little bit of banging around to get this thing loose, but she finally came loose. I'm going to cut these ends off. And here's a shot of those rivets. Just going to buzz those out right quick. And as you can see, the plasma cutter made pretty quick work of all those. Now these bed frames are made of not necessarily a real, like, extremely high carbon steel, but they are somewhat mildly hardened. So you gotta take a little bit of care with them whenever welding so they don't crack. I've never had any issue with it, but I have heard about people that have. But these things make good scrap. I love using these things. They're great for shelves and everything like that. Here, just kind of getting some measurements together, figuring out rough estimates of what I need. I'm going to make an H-shaped base for this thing. So I need to get my bolt holes to line up. That'll get it to sit flat on a table or sit perfect in the bench vise. Right here, I'm just cutting off this end that had some holes in it.
Trying to keep things as square as I can to save me some work with the grinder later. I always have to attach a fence like this to my plasma cutter, or to my steel when I use the plasma cutter. I have never been able to cut straight without one. So I do this. It makes pretty quick work. As you can see, it's a pretty straight cut. But without that fence, man, my cuts just wander all over the place. This little table, I really like it. We're probably going to do some more things to it. I want to reinforce it with some welds. I want to put some casters on it so I can roll it around. But it's actually turning out to be a really good table for the money that I spent on it. I really like it. We just got to kind of work on it a little bit to get it the way we want it, to make it as perfect as we can. I'm telling you guys, these budget plasma cutters, pick one of those up. You go through so much money using grinding wheels and cut off discs and all this other stuff, even just saw blades. And like I said, this bed frame material is semi-hardened, and it goes through saw blades like crazy. It's a pain in the butt to drill too. You can drill it a little bit better than you can cut it, but the plasma cutter just makes quick work out of this. I just use my speed square as the ruler for this. Keep me from having to drag out a whole bunch of tools. No muss, no fuss. Get it done and be done with it. I need to work on my stick welding skills a little bit, so I just burned this in with a 6011 rod. I'm starting to really like these 6011s. I used to only burn 6013 and 7018, but I'm really starting to appreciate that fast freeze puddle of the 6011. You can really manipulate your puddle, and on this thin stuff, you can really do a good job of eliminating your burn through and things like that. I'm not a good welder. I can weld stuff that sticks together, but it's ugly. So you kind of see that reflected here in this video, but hey, we're learning together, right? You can see this automatic center punch. It really has a hard time punching a good divot in these bed frames. You got to whack it several times. As I said, I'm putting this together with rivet nuts, so I'm going to just punch a pilot hole in it and then use the step drill bit to just sort of embiggen them a little bit until my rivet nut fits in the hole. These Milwaukee 12-volt drills, man, this is an older one. It's quite a few generations behind, but they do a good job of punching through this stuff. It's an awkward angle. Handles are a little bit hard to squeeze on this thing. You'll notice on the second one, I took it in 2 different bites. Made it a lot easier to go ahead and compress that rivet nut. Here we go, just setting this thing up there, getting these bolts started. This actually worked out really well. It mounted up perfect. I really couldn't have asked for anything better. It worked out pretty good, and as you can see, I've got it sitting in my bigger vise right now. This is going to allow me to move it between the permanently mounted workbench that's mounted to the wall, this little welding table. I can take it and set it in this vise. I can put it on the welding table vise. I can take it and set it in the bed of the truck. It keeps this little lightweight grinder pretty modular, so I can move it around and it's not just stuck in one singular spot. Okay, now time to put this vise on here. Just trying to get it lined up so I don't punch a hole through a place it doesn't need to go. This steel's a lot softer, so it really punched a lot better with that automatic center punch than that bed frame material did. Same thing, punch a pilot hole, then go through and enlarge the holes with the step drill bit until my rivet nuts fit through. A pretty simple process. This is relatively thin, so it drills pretty easy. I was surprised at how well these rivet nuts worked. I was expecting them to raise the vise up and leave a gap where it'd kind of be teeter-tottering, but they actually set pretty flush. Those stepped drill bits, they kind of somewhat countersink, so it let these things sit more flush than I expected them to. Man, I've had this vise forever. Had this thing, I got it whenever I was a teenager, and it's been through so many different moves and different houses and apartments, and it's been mounted to a dozen different things. Well, probably more than that. But this is where it's going to live now. It's going to live on this table. I'll probably do the same kind of mount with my buffer, and I've got a little small belt sander. It kind of works out pretty good. I kind of like it. You see me here just kind of trying it out, sharpening up a cold chisel. End of this thing was pretty mushroomed over, so I went ahead and kind of buffed that off a little bit. Kind of sharpened the drill bit too. You'll see that here in a second. I'm not the greatest at it, but it did sharpen, so I think this thing's going to work out pretty good.
So there you have it, friends. Got a vise on here. I really like the way those rivet nuts worked out. And I have the bench grinder mounted on just a, an H pattern angle iron made out of old bed frames. And it works great for what I wanted. It's not the sturdiest setup, I realize that, but I wasn't intending on it being that. I just use this grinder for, sharpening a cold chisel or something like that. It's a really light duty grinder. If you lean into it, it runs out of power really quick. This vise I've had forever, and it's just about the perfect size to mount to this table, so I can still pick it up and move it around without it being overly heavy. We're going to do another video on this, I think. All of these joints, I want to run a weld on all of these joints where it's bolted together, just to stiffen this table up a little bit. And I think I'm going to put some casters on it also. I've been moving this thing back and forth in the garage, using it quite a bit. It'd be nice to have it on wheels, and anything we can do to stiffen it up, hey, why not?